Enjoy local voices. Enjoy local opinions. All on one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts, featuring some of the DC area's best personalities, pundits, and provocateurs. Earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts you love instantly. With new programs being added every week, don't hesitate. Download Podcast DC now for free. Available in the App Store or in Google Play. Podcast DC. Listen local.
Say It Loud Network presents Corner Table Talk.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Corner Table Talk. Today, I have two actually really good friends. We've become great friends over the years, but business partners, associates, two really talented culinary folks, two chefs, and really just fabulous people. And I'm really pleased to have Govind Armstrong and John Cleveland join me here on Corner Table Talk. Govind is currently the executive chef and director of operations at the Lobster restaurant in Santa Monica, which happens to be one of LA's highest grossing restaurants. It's a fantastic place and probably the best place in LA to watch the sunset. But he's a chef, an author, a TV personality, known for a straightforward, distinctive seasonal approach to cooking. He's worked with some of the biggest names on the West Coast, in the food scene on the West Coast: Wolfgang Puck, Nancy Silverton, Mary Sue Milken, and Susan Finneker, Joachim Splichau, and Brad Johnson, too. I'll add my name to that list. He's worked with me as well. So really, really honored to have Govind. He partnered with me in both Post and Beam and Willie Jane, and he is a proud dad. Just a fantastic guy. John Cleveland is currently the owner, along with his wife, Ronnie, of Post and Beam. Govind and I transferred, my wife Linda transferred ownership to John a couple of summers ago, and we're going to talk about how that's been for him. John is born in Oakland, raised in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, draws some of his culinary influences from Southern soul food, Carolina barbecue, and coastal seafood, and it's kind of defined Post and Beam as it's evolved since Govind and I opened in 2012 as California comfort food. And I know he's got a heavy emphasis on Southern there. So we're going to talk about what he's up to. And interestingly enough, John majored in math in college, and actuarial sciences, which is a discipline that assesses financial risk. And you still went into the restaurant business. So I want to understand that a little bit, your rationale. But two really fantastic guys with strong backgrounds and a lot of on the ground experience in Los Angeles over this past year, and some insights that I want to get into with them. So John Cleveland, Govind Armstrong, thank you for being here and welcome to Corner Table Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
So I kick things off with, I call short order questions. So I don't even have to explain to two chefs what that means, but I'll get started. John, you guys can both answer the same question. And John, you can go first. So what is in heavy rotation on your playlist these days? What are you listening to?
Oh, wow. I'm listening to an instrumental album called, from Gangstar.
Okay. All right. Instrumental.
Little hip hop. I like I'm freestyling in my head.
Govind, how about you? What's in your earbuds?
You know, these days it's, this is going to throw you off, but it's been a little bit of yo-yo ma. You know, I've been needing to just sort of decompress and stay calm and cool. And he's got a way of just doing that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This last year definitely had me dig deep into my quiet music playlist category, and just needed a little cerebral piece, a little peace of mind was much called for. All right, back to you, John, and then Govind. What's on your feet, John? What are you wearing? What kind of footwear?
I wear these shoes called Brooks. They're like orthopedic shoes. Short story. I've had a lot of leg injuries, so it's hard for me to stay on my feet for 12, 14 hours without like some real support, man. I use orthopedic design shoes.
Good for comfort and stability. Govind, what are you wearing?
Well, stylish at home, and today I'll be riding my motorcycle in, but I am a huge Blundstone fan. They're an Australian boot company that they're just something about them. I've been wearing them for years. I have a number of pairs, probably 6 or 7 different types of boots. And then they do some low ankle boots as well. But, at the restaurant, I probably have 4 pair there that I sort of rotate through. And they're just really comfortable, great support. Not the most stylish, but they are classically styled. And I don't know, they just fit my feet really well. And they can take a beating. And I don't know, they're very versatile. You can wear them out, wear them in, dust off all the lobster guts and stuff, and you're good to go.
And picture you on that bike. Yeah, I've seen that. That's a good look. All right, John. So it's an off night in LA, which is rare. You and Ronnie have a babysitter. So tell me, where are you going for dinner and what are you having?
Lately we've been trying to really mix it up since the reopening of restaurants in LA. The last off night, we went to Spago recently. We opened our restaurant on Easter Sunday, and the GM of Spago came and had just a fantastic time, invited us out. So our first night with the babysitter, as of recent, we went to Spago. But I've been really itching to go to a few places. I wanted to check out Manuela. I hear they're doing like a great scene for dinner service in downtown. And I think we're looking to try some new spots. There's a lot of new things going on with outdoor dining. So that's kind of been our little get to lately.
Cool, man. Well, you help me make my list when I'm ready to make my round. So, Govind, you and Julia have babysitters for the kid or a babysitter for the kids. Where are you headed, man? Where are you looking forward to dining and what are you going to eat there?
I want to take her to Major Domo. It's David Chang's place downtown. I've been before. They have, just a killer wine list, a lot of really cool, funky, natural wines, serious cocktail program without being too over the top, really approachable but unique. And then his style of food that he's doing there, it's just fantastic. It's a blend of Korean, Cantonese, this and that. They have this huge, what is it? It's the whole short rib that they're doing there. That's obviously for, I think 3, 4, 5 people. I'm going to see what kind of damage I can do on that.
Didn't we consider doing one of those at one point? But we were a little
we did something similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 3-bone short rib plate. Yeah, we did that at Willie Jane a couple times. It was amazing. It's such an incredible cut of meat, and he just does a fantastic job. From what I've seen, the pictures are one of those things that are really driving me to ordering that next time I go in. And, he sends it out with all the accoutrement and they carve it tableside, or they used to pre-COVID. I don't know what they're doing with it now. I'm pretty handy with the knife, so I'm not concerned with that part. Just really excited to get out, have some quality time and relax and eat some good food.
Yeah, man. My son Bryce was just there and his girlfriend Fabi, and they absolutely loved that restaurant, Major Domo. They raved about it. So I'm be very curious. Well, here's some more about it from you. So you have a little stretch of time off, let's just say. John, where are you looking forward to traveling to? Where would you like to vacation or experience next outside of Los Angeles?
Oh, man, I think I'm itching to get back to the Carolinas more than anything. I want to spend some time out in the country, cooking over a fire, sleeping in a tent, looking at the stars. So I really, really would love to go hunting, hang out with my brothers out in the country. That is absolutely the first place I'm going.
That sounds about right, man. I like that. Govind, what about you? You've well traveled. You've been a lot of places. Where are you looking forward to going to take a little break?
It's funny. Last year was the first time that we were actually going to go as a family back to Costa Rica. I haven't been back down there in years, just with the kids and work and all the other craziness. We were supposed to go in July, and of course that didn't happen. So this year I'm going to figure out how to make it happen, but take, all the kids down there. I'm going to grab my mom and take her down and just have them sort of reconnect or just connect with that side of the family and that part of the world. It was something that I was fortunate enough to, grow up in and really get down there quite frequently. And I still have a major connection, even though I haven't been in years, still have a ton of family down there, just to really have them understand, it's like, this is like where we're from, this is where family's from. these are your cousins that you never met. You know what I mean? It's just really important to me that they see that and get a taste of that side of, you know, who I am and who they are. But,
yeah,
you know,
it's
great just, trip. Yeah, no, beautiful. I can't wait to just get out there on the beaches and just relax, go to find places where my cell phone doesn't work and, you know, all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. I hear you. All right. So, John, fondest childhood food memory.
Wow. That is a tough one. That's hard. It's a toss up between mom's fried chicken and dad's ribs. But I hope they don't judge me for this. I gotta go with. You
don't have to choose. I don't want to start a family dispute here. So
it's dad's ribs, man. I mean, they were so good. We used to fight for them. I mean, we would, I would literally watch him cook them for 12 hours, you know, just sit there and watch. I never actually got a chance to do much of the cooking. I got to clean, move the grills, empty them out, start the fire. You know, but yeah, absolutely, man. After sitting there smelling and looking at the smoke for 12 hours, that was always my thing. Is
Dad put in the work. Well, let's hope we didn't make mom upset with that with choosing dad there, but she probably enjoyed those ribs too, so she might be down with that answer. Govind, what about you, man?
You know, one of my favorites, and still to this day, it's the simplest thing in the world. It's you know, that breakfast, a couple fried eggs, some crispy bacon, and grits. You know, my mom used to and still does, you know, she'll make the grits with add, you know, an ample amount of the bacon fat, you know, then fry the eggs in the other remaining bacon fat. And sometimes she'd add cheese to the grits, but it was really just one of those things, you know, and black pepper. Every now and then there'd be lumps in the grits. You know, my mom was, you know, busy raising 5 kids. Everything wasn't going to be perfect every time, but there was just something about the flavor and starting my day that way that just was beyond satisfying and just so delicious to, you know, every now and then I'll crank out the same. And I don't know, it's just a good way to get your day going. Yeah, maybe a little less bacon fat these days, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say it because I've been on a grits like thing lately, and I make the instant grits that, you know, take about 15, 20 minutes. And I use Daya vegan cheese, put that in, a little pepper and some garlic salt. And I think I got the garlic from you, if I'm not mistaken, with the grits. Am I right or wrong about that?
Right.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I thought I got that from somewhere, but yeah. And I'll buy some of those quick Pillsbury honey biscuits and, you know, have myself my own little, you know, version of my down home breakfast. So lastly, before we move on to some other subjects, John, what is your favorite spice these days and why?
Lately, I've been using this Balinese long pepper. Super cool pepper. It's just got a little bit more aromatics to it, but I've been switching it in and substituting it with a lot of my ingredients for spice blends for pepper. Just falling in love with it.
Govind, Spice Master Govind.
Really what do you working with? I love that Balinese long pepper. Super aromatic. Recently, I've been using a lot of the Urfa biber. It's a type of Turkish chili that's not like too spicy. It's a little more citrusy. Little hint of smoke, but super unique. I don't know. I've been making like fun vinaigrettes with that. It's great to like brush fish with after you grill it. Yeah, just interesting in marinades. It's super versatile, and I'm still, you know, just playing around with it quite a bit. But that's sort of been a go-to for a little while.
Yeah, man, that was one of the things that I really thought was just especially outstanding about you is your ability to just find these flavors from seasonings and just bring out the most of the flavor of the food by just the subtle use of spice and unusual flavors and combinations. And I think you do that exceptionally well. And John, you too. All right. So let's dive into, some of the subjects I want to cover here with both of you. So Govind, as I mentioned, you operate, you know, one of the busiest restaurants in Los Angeles and just a fantastic place to watch the sunset. The Lobster is an amazing room, beautiful space and great view, as I mentioned. But the past year, the challenges of 2020, in 2021 ongoing still, had to have been just a lot for even someone like you who's had a ton of experience. What's this past year been like for you, and what have you experienced?
It's interesting because it's been a little bit of both, like in all the darkness and unknown, it was really like beyond stressful times. But, the silver lining for me, or one of them, was just the amount of time that I was able to spend with the family and with the kids, every single day without, stressing out too much, knowing that, no matter what, we're going to get through this. Even, the restaurant industry will get through this. The tough part was just having to let go of the staff and not being able to take care of them as, we were used to. It's just really hard. A lot of people don't have the resources or the resources to even tap into getting unemployment or figuring out, how to feed their families and this, and that. I really struggled with that. I struggled with the kids that were, yanked out of school and stuck at home and may or may not have had the support from their parents to continue their education or to even try. It's just, it was really, really hard all around. But, having that time to spend with the family and with the kids and all that was, again, just the silver lining. And that was really like the only upside there. That and no traffic, getting from A to B was incredible.
Right. And I guess too, with the staff going, one thing to tell folks, I'm going to have to lay you off and, in a month I'll be able to bring you back or whatever, but not knowing, where the end was going to be, right? The uncertainty, and they look to you for some degree of certainty, right? And that had to have been a difficult time.
Yeah. It's like nobody knew, I had to stop myself from reading the news and watching and trying to stay on top of things because it was driving me crazy. It was literally beyond disruptive to everything. I couldn't sleep, and I know I'm not the only one, but it's like everyone was going through this time where the uncertainty was just beyond overwhelming. So I had to just put a pause on that and know that, hey, we're at home. This is what I have to be doing right now. Just sort of taking care of everybody as well as I can. And, and still communicating with staff, helping them out whenever I can. A lot of my vendors were good in terms of like floating us some product and, I'd definitely get some product to the staff, just getting them some basic food or whatever we can do for them just to sort of help out.
And John, you took over from Govind and I and Linda in the summer of 2019. You took over Post and Beam after having worked with us there. So, you had a good understanding of the restaurant, but, you had about 8 months of operating before COVID kicked in. And, I know you had your own business before, you had a catering business, but, owning a business like a restaurant where you, as Govind and I just mentioned, you have all of these employees that look to you, and that you advise and they look to you for support. That had to have been a pretty unique and you've got a son who, had some challenges as a youngster, and Miles is looking great and strong and beautiful now. But, you and Ronnie had some extra special care you had to take to make sure that everyone stayed healthy. But what's this year been like for you as a first time restaurant owner, businessman, dad, all of that?
I think Govind summed it up really well. It's been a roller coaster, It was weird because we, like you said, we had only been operating as owners for 8 months leading into like the onset of the dining closures. And man, it was like felt like we were just getting our footing, and the rug just got pulled from underneath us. But we, I don't know, we did a lot of different things to adapt and try to keep things fresh and roll with the punches and make sure Post and Beam stayed like open and relevant and all the things, and just to keep the momentum that we felt we had gained with getting customers to keep coming to Post and Beam, man. It was, as you know, you all left some pretty big shoes to fill. So it's not like operating your everyday mom and pop's business. It's a lot of community relations. You get real close with people, same as everybody. I think laying off staff was just a horrible experience to have to go through like multiple times in 12 months. I've never had to deal with laying folks off that many so often, like with so much uncertainty. It was just, these are people that we've all developed personal relationships with over the years, even laying off somebody that like Foster, and it was just weird. It's odd to even have to go through that. And, Foster was one of the reasons why we fell in love with Post and Beam. To just have to have those kind of conversations was just awful, man. And I'm glad we're past that. But yeah, that was just a rough time, man. And for us, we were always just in real, I don't know, high level of just awareness of COVID because of our son's health history. He was born with chronic lung disease. So we were already just really aware of respiratory issues in general. And I mean, he'd been on breathing machines and ventilation for, the first 2 years of his life. So we really were just getting out of him breathing regular air like everybody. And to see this risk of COVID come in was frightening. But we've, since then gotten vaccinations and we're open again, and everything's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. It's feeling a little bit comfortable being around people again. So, I mean, we kind of went into a hibernation almost,
Yeah. And, I'm sure I speak for Govind here. And, we've tried to stay, Linda and I and Govind, I know we've all tried to stay close to you and Ronnie and offer whatever guidance and mentoring we can. But John, I have to tell you, man, the way that you've stepped up and, the demeanor, the no quit, the just, and you don't seem to get down, you just have this positive vibe about you. And even with all of the struggles compounded by what you had to, be careful of with Miles, your disposition, man, is just amazing. How do you keep such a positive frame of mind?
I've learned from the best, man. I've witnessed some very composed individuals with you and Govind. My parents were great examples, but I think falling in love with Post and Beam allowed us to really witness what you all did. It drew me. When I look back on it now, I might be one of Post and Beam's greatest fans. But I've been working in restaurants since I was a kid, like all of us, and coming to Post and Beam and seeing the way you work the dining room, observing the way Govind runs a kitchen, it was very influential for me. I don't know if everybody that listens to this podcast has ever been to a Brad Johnson restaurant, but I mean, it's rare that you find an owner that busts tables, run the food, greet you at the host station, and be very involved with the staff. I mean, it was, I don't know. I thought you all were the greatest example of what I wanted to be as a restaurateur and as a chef. I just really took a note from you all, if anything, on how to compose and present myself.
That's a big compliment, man. Thank you. Thank you very much. John initially was attracted to Post and Beam because he wanted to work with you. He had heard about you, and I want to talk to John a little bit about that in a moment. But you've worked with John now for a while, and you've worked with many people over the years. What do you see in John? What do you think, allows John to, how would you view him at this point as an operator, as a chef, and what kind of potential do you see in John?
Well, for where he's at in terms of ownership of a, freestanding restaurant and a unique one like Post and Beam, he's well ahead of the curve here. He's got that talent to where he can sort of remove himself just enough and sort of look down at what's going on and really understand the scope of what needs to happen in order to be successful, and understands how to make it his own at the same time. It's a really unique situation. I know I keep saying that word unique, but it's like Post and Beam is unique, and it comes with unique challenges, and it takes the right person to be able, or people and team for matter of fact, to continue to improve and continue to move the needle and not just keep it status quo. It's like restaurants need to always evolve in order to continue to attract, your customer base and to keep your regulars happy. And, John's never lost sight of that, and
Right.
I can tell, continue to do so, continue to challenge himself, try new things, make risks, make mistakes, and, learn from them, most importantly.
And I think a lot like you too, Govind, with, being able to use both sides of your brain, both the creative and the analytical. You're also a numbers guy. You're proficient with controlling costs, and you have an eye on the bottom line. And, that's absolutely necessary, when so much product is passing through your hands and so much labor you're responsible for. John, I'm curious, Govind, obviously has a big reputation, but he was the main reason, I think, that you had mentioned that you initially were interested in coming to work at Post and Beam. How had you heard about Govind? What was it about his particular style or him that attracted you and made you think that this was somebody I really wanted to learn under?
I think, at the time when I had met you all or had approached you guys, I had been in LA for maybe 4 or 5 years. And, my dream, I've always dreamt of owning a restaurant. And I grew as a chef, and really started working in kitchens. And I didn't go to culinary school, but I learned from some really talented chefs on how to advance in kitchens. And so I had felt like I had done some really cool work and had some pretty nice success in some of the projects that I had tried to do. And I really wanted to find a home in a lot of ways. I felt like I was wandering around with my skills of learning how to figure out how to, get to A to B to C. And I was making so many mistakes. And I always saw Govind as a figure that, like you said, was so super composed. He works in open kitchens, so you can really see how he manages and works around people. And for me, I'd started working in North Carolina, and out there, it's not a big culinary scene like we have in LA. And I had never met a chef as accomplished as Govind. And I looked at him as someone that I could really ask questions to and learn from. I'm the kind of person that probably learns the most from just watching and observing. I'm like a sponge. So I really thought that I could take a lot from being around him. And I thought that was a missing piece for me, was just, I needed some guidance, some mentorship from seasoned professionals. And instead of, I had been winging it a lot before I met you guys. And so you all really, Govind with his culinary excellence is pretty mind blowing to look through Govind's recipes and look through the amount of recipes, I can't even explain how much it is, and as a young chef, you're thinking to yourself, wow, I thought I was good at what I do, but there's obviously a lot of room for growth. And, I just saw Govind's experience as something that I really wanted to tap into. I hadn't had anybody outside of my family that had been very influential on guiding me in my career path. And none of them have the restaurant type experience that I'm trying to obtain. So
smart man. And, Govind, I think you're one of the most underrated chefs in the country. Even though you've had a fair amount of media exposure, but still, I think you're underrated, for what your skill set is and just the plates that you put out, man, and the food that you create is just beautiful and it tastes great. I'm curious, man, you went from Post and Beam, which is a local restaurant where we see how many, John, 90 people there, and, a very intimate community place. And we would have, some busy nights where, we couldn't have done any more business. But you went from that to one of the busiest restaurants in Southern California, the Lobster. And the volume that you do there is just amazing. And I'm curious, what's the biggest difference for you going from a small room, intimate setting like Post and Beam to a place like the Lobster? And does volume solve everything?
The transition was, for me, I've worked in busy restaurants before and I love it. And scale, it's an interesting thing because there were definitely nights at Post and Beam where, you couldn't see the end of it. You know what I mean? Where it was just busy, it's tight. Everyone's in sync and things are going well. Knock wood, there's some other nights when the wheels completely come off, but whatever, that's the business. and then ramping up and going over to the lobster was, a challenge that I had wanted. It's like I appreciate, both aspects of working in a, smaller neighborhood style restaurant. But, that place is, lobster, it's a beast, and I definitely saw the potential in my personal growth in taking on a position like that to where, sure, I'm responsible for all the, back of the house operations, but also, any position that I take, it's like, you need to grow, you know what I mean? You need to like try something new, try something different. There was a learning curve. It's like, sure, I've worked with lobster, I've worked with all kinds of product, but I've never dealt with that much lobster and that much like high cost items every service every day, so that part was fun and challenging and a little nerve wracking in the beginning, but then I, just being confident enough, it's like I knew that I could sort of figure it out in time and then just improve on that and improve on it in terms of obviously their bottom line, improve on just standardizing systems and growing the staff as well. And to answer your question, volume and a high check average solves everything. And then some. And then a little more.
Yeah. And a little more. Yeah. Very honest answer there. John, what is your biggest challenge coming back from COVID now as in-room dining capacities increase and with new safety protocols and all that? What are you looking at as your biggest challenges?
There are a lot of challenges. The biggest one, the one that I feel like solves a lot of my issues, though, is getting line cooks. I had to lay off some of my kitchen staff over the pandemic, and they were a big part of our team. Trying to replace them has been like a huge challenge. Even bringing on the cooks that we have, we brought back a lot of the team, but finding enough line cooks, like a lost art at this point. I think everybody I talk to is looking for a line cook at some point, for a service. We've shortened the amount of services we do a week, to kind of make sense. But man, I think line cooks are absolutely something that's the biggest challenge, man. It's we have so many people requesting service. We're turning people away, so it's like keeping that wheel going, man. We need more cooks.
Well, I'm going to come back to that because I know the shortage of staff has definitely been a subject. In fact, John, you're quoted today in the Miami Herald. I think they took an excerpt of yours from Restaurant Business, but to the extent that there's a hiring challenge going on around the country. But before I get to that, I'm curious, with restaurants being so front and center this past year and the struggle and kind of maybe a little bit to a certain degree that the curtain kind of being pulled back on the mystique of, just the profitability of restaurants, the work, the how difficult the work actually is. And maybe the public to some degree, because they have not, restaurants have been closed. We haven't been able to go out, assuming that people miss that. Do you think that we're going to enter a period now as restaurants start to come back where people have a different level of appreciation for that experience, Govind?
That's an interesting question. I think there are a lot of people that are eager to get back out and happy about getting out and supportive of the staff and generally just, really excited about it. And then I think that it's sort of tweaked people's sort of expectations as well. And to a point where they're almost expecting more, and not really taking care of the staff as well as they would in the past. It's interesting, and it's so split, and it's not, any particular race or color or this or that. It's like just people in general. I think some forgot how to go out, and act and be. and how to be, kind and courteous, and some are coming out and are extremely happy and just super appreciative and take care of the staff and are just thankful and gracious. So it's been interesting. I think it's, I'm looking forward to it evolving and people continuing to feel safe and come out and spend money and support their local. But at the same time, it's like there are some people coming out that are receiving money that they weren't receiving before and coming out and spending money and acting stupid, pardon. But, I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's been a little tough in that sense to where you can never tell. You never tell like who's going to act out and how things are going to go with anybody. So it's a little weird, and granted the lobster's in a position where we're getting a lot of foot traffic and there's a lot of lower hanging fruit or whatever, there's tons of people just walking in off the street or off the pier or whatever. So you're going to get a rather mixed bag. And at that point, then it's just a numbers game, so 80% are going to do the right thing. Another 10% are going to go, off the deep end, and the other 10 is like the wild card, So it's, you just never know.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like our business is unpredictable in that way anyway. It's like, what you do on Tuesday night and have a fantastic Tuesday night. And then Wednesday you do the exact same things and, it doesn't quite go the same. It's like a Broadway production every night, and the moon and the stars align some nights and other nights, not quite the same way. John, what's your sense of the comeback now? Do you feel like folks are antsy? Do you feel a pent up demand?
Definitely feel a pent up demand. It's still pretty weird. I think it was always a mixed bag, like Govind said, for Post and Beam as well. But I think it's interesting how our actions over the past 12 months are making our customer experiences differently. Like we've been semi-successful at putting together a to-go and delivery business that we really didn't have before. And now we're trying to scale back so that we can really handle the in-service dining, and people are really not happy about it. They are, we're trying to figure out how do we continue to satisfy this takeout and delivery business that we've been able to generate, and also satisfy, a fully reserved dining room at the same time. And it's just like this. How do you do it? How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, let me go. I had another question, but since you bring up that point, I'm curious to get both of your opinions on ghost kitchens. Are ghost kitchens potentially an answer to alleviate the extra burden of takeout on a particular location? Govind, you've been around for a minute. What do you think of that?
I think it's an interesting model. I think it does work for certain concepts. I think it's a great style of an incubator and, coming up with some cool concepts and just sort of testing the market in that sense. But, it's a model that I don't fully believe in myself. I've seen it done well and I've seen it done, very poorly. So, a lot of people are sort of jumping and diving into that model. And, I don't know. It's one of those things where if you have the right operator and everything's like sort of buttoned up and bulletproof, I think there's definitely success there. But in terms of, the integrity of what you're trusting other people with in order to produce your food, I don't know. It could go either way.
Yeah. And an entire menu of your food. We had, I had Naisha Arrington on a few weeks ago, and she voiced the same apprehension as you. She said she might be willing to launch a dish through a ghost kitchen, but an entire menu she'd be, pretty apprehensive about. John, what's your feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think ghost kitchens are one of those things that are beneficial for maybe the ride sharing industry, but I don't think from a chef or a restaurateur, I don't think that's a permanent answer for anything. I have some experience working with a restaurant group that played with the ghost kitchen model. I did some R&D chef work with the group called Cloud Kitchens. And, I think delivery and takeout is here to stay. Finding different ways that you can offer food programs through it, I think is really something that everybody's still trying to figure out. But ghost kitchens, they're just like a short-term solution, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. So, yeah, I think a better model would be a conjunction, like a catering kitchen operating in conjunction with a local on-site dining.
Well, one of the rideshare guys, I forgot which one, just dumped a bunch of like $100 million into the ghost kitchen concept in LA. So somebody believes in it, but I think coming from an on the ground, to people like yourselves, probably some caution needs to be leveled into all of that enthusiasm. So Govind, I moved to LA in '89. I certainly saw the food scene evolve there considerably, over the 30 years or so that I lived in LA. And, you started in Wolfgang Puck's kitchen, as a young man. There's a great picture of you as a youngster doing your thing there. But how LA has just evolved, man, in such a really cool, creative way. And now, I think it may be the most creative culinary scene in the country. But what do you think about how the LA food scene has evolved? What have you seen over the years, and where do you think it is today?
I think the scene is great. I think it's really sort of caught up and now really just trailblazing, the country in terms of all the different ethnic, and high-end ethnic restaurants that are coming out. And, there's incredible Filipino food that's been really, hitting the market pretty strong and gaining some real traction there. Even a lot of New York-based chefs that have been moving out onto this coast because they see the opportunity, they see the potential in doing some, making a mark on this coast has been really interesting. But it's, the food scene, it's changed a lot. I think businesses have been and restaurants have been really trying to figure it out, like how to introduce incredible new restaurants. I think there's still a ton of investment, of restaurants that are being built out where they're spending a fortune. You look at some of these places in downtown that are opening up and they're digging in some deep pockets there. And it's great to see that. And also the smaller independent restaurants that are just, trying to create some buzz in an old strip mall and like just getting a little storefront and doing some killer food there. So I think it's just a great time in the city. I think it's exciting. There's just about anything, you can choose from out there that, people are just doing an incredible job at.
John, what's your purview on that? You're in an interesting vantage point in South LA, and I think, there's some eyes on you and some attention in South LA, some focus now that maybe wasn't there when Govind and I first started. And although South LA certainly deserved attention back then, but for whatever reason, somehow, a lot of places have gotten overlooked. But you're there now. A lot of buzz. South LA is a hot real estate market. The football stadium, Inglewood, real estate's up there 70% from, 5 minutes ago. What you're talking to a lot of vendors, people are interested. What are you seeing trend wise out there that's interesting to you, John, that you're keeping an eye on?
I think our particular area in South LA, I've always called it like the takeout mecca of LA. It's so many takeout businesses, huge in that area. But there's been this buzz around the train line opening up and what that's going to do for traffic and foot traffic to have a lot of that construction removed off of Crenshaw. I think with the stadium opening up, it's going to be a new ball game. I think it's really, a lot of push to move to Inglewood area, and that South Bay is really looking for a lot of volume, a lot of more traffic out. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot more Posted and Beam style restaurants popping up in South LA, a lot more full service, full bar. I know that the city's been really pushing for a lot of the regulation to be, more streamlined, a little easier for entry. So I think you're going to see a lot of action happening in South LA and right around Inglewood.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. And I don't know that it's necessarily cheaper real estate over there anymore. So I know that initially is what attracts operators, but I think the cost per foot is going to be on par with, everywhere else in the city. And maybe you have us partly to thank for some of that too, because we got in there early. So Govind, just going back to when we took on Post and Beam, when I thought about taking on a venture at that location, the area surrounding the mall looked quite a bit different than, it looks today. There was no Kaiser. That lot was abandoned. The mall had seen some better days. The Magic Johnson Theater had, gone away, and there just wasn't, I wouldn't have, and if you remember too, we were coming out of the market crash, and real estate was suppressed, and that area was one of the last neighborhoods to start to make the upward swing. So there weren't a lot of checks on the side of the column that say this is a must do, right? So, but I knew that I needed someone of your caliber, and there really, it was you and not many other places to go. Someone who had been recognized by the media, but that might also say yes. And I thought it was a long shot, to get you. I had met you. I thought we clicked. I loved what you'd done at Table 8. I thought the T-bone steak you made there was one of the best meals I'd ever had. And I thought it was a long shot, but you said yes. So looking back, man, what was it that caused you to look at that dilapidated building that used to house a fried chicken spot and didn't have a whole lot else going on around there, except the fact that Baldwin Hills, Ladera Heights, and View Park are 1, 2, 3 wealthiest Black communities in the country. They were within a stone's throw from us. But what was it really that made you say, I want to do this?
It was a number of things. I don't know, like as a restaurateur, as an operator, sure, you can look at the facade of the building and this and that and think it's like, we can't make this work. But it's like, it was there wasn't a lot of hesitation on my behalf, was there? When you sort of,
surprisingly,
right.
not. Right. It wasn't. You said, I'm in. I was like, excuse me?
Exactly. I just get the neighborhood. I understand the need for like just good food, so understanding that we can get there, understand that you were a big part of it as well. That was very reassuring. Just the opportunity to work with you on a project was a big one as well. And Linda as well, it's like she and I had never met prior. But obviously there were a few times where we did sit down, and just getting to know her and her business acumen and all that was, again, potential for me to grow and learn from her. But the community itself is, it was it. It's like it deserves, and it was hungry for a good restaurant of the caliber that we were going to execute at that time. I thought everything was just sort of lining up. I'm a big believer, if you build it, they will come. And I think that, between just the team that we put together, that it was, I don't know, I wouldn't say a slam dunk, but, I know it would sort of get some good shots in there and make a pretty big impact. And yeah, honestly, I did, really want to work with you and partner with you guys and see what kind of waves we could make in a community that deserved what we could offer.
And man, as you're saying that, I'm just reminded of when you take on something like this together, right? I mean, we form like a little unit, and then the outgrowth of that is all of the relationships that happen. I mean, your mom used to come into, Post and Beam regularly, and it was just lovely to see her. My mom worked there before, she passed away a couple of years ago, but we created like this family. You had the twins, and, Willow came, she grew up in, Bryce was coming around, and we had like this family neighborhood. And that's to me is the best of what our business can offer a community. Do you see it that way too?
100%. No. And those are memories that, will never leave me, memories that, will never leave Willow and just our family. And, and just so many moments of greatness where you can't create that, you know what I mean? It's like you want that, but it's like you can't force it. And the fact that it happened so organically and so honestly, there's nothing better. It's like I remember many, many shifts, either talking to guests or behind the line and just looking out and just looking at the makeup of who's coming to not even just check us out, but who's coming to dine, who's coming out to have an experience was just, such an eclectic, cool room, from the music to the lighting, the ambiance, the atmosphere, all of it, to Sundays, having little garden parties, teaching people how to compost and with the cocktail in hand, it's like there's just a lot, of real fun, hard work. I think it's kind of the textbook neighborhood restaurant. Like this is what it takes in order to be successful. And we checked off many boxes in that book.
Yeah, we did, man. And, your idea to incorporate a garden, again, we're going back quite a few years, but that wasn't the most popular idea. It hadn't become trendy. But you had, the way that you looked around corners and knew, what needed to happen. And you decided to introduce that idea. And it was just a phenomenal accessory to the restaurant. John, I've seen, fantastic pictures of Miles sitting, next to you, watching you make pizza. And, your beautiful wife, Ronnie, is, instrumental now in getting to know the restaurant world and watching your family kind of evolve into that scene. How does that feel to you, man, to have, you own that business? This is your spot. You're in charge. You're the guy. Your son's there looking at his papa doing his thing in the building that, he's the boss. How's that feel for you?
Oh, man, I feel like I'm living the dream every day. It's quite amazing. I haven't had much time to reflect until I think this past 12 months where life just really slowed down for a little bit. But man, it's been like a wild dream come true. In my wildest dreams, I think I would have been a chef owner of a restaurant like Posted Thing for it to actually happen before I turned 40. And my son's growing up and watching it all go down. And I mean, it's absolutely living the dream. We're right in the neighborhood my wife grew up in. We inherited all of these great relationships from you all's hard work, man. It's pretty wild. Like I don't talk about it too often when you think about like what's actually happening. Ronnie and I sit back, I think at the end of the night and we're like, wow, that's crazy. This is crazy. Like we got after parties and the community groups trying to do little things, events with us, and off chance I get to cook with Govind here and there and we do events together. We got invited to do, I follow this event called Out in the Infield, and they do outdoor dining events at farms for like hundreds of people. I used to work under Chef Charlie Parker when I first moved out here, and he used to do events there with them. And we're going to do one with them at the end of the summer. We got invited to do an event with Thorne Family Farm to do, I think, 250 people out in the farm. And I was like, I'm just living the dream, man. Like some of the business we get approached with, man, it's mind blowing that we're doing it. We're this young, and pretty successful at it, I'd like to say. I don't think, I always feel like we could do better, but man, we're killing it in a lot of ways.
I'm happy to hear that, man. And even amidst the hiring challenges and everything else that you're confronting, that you're finding the glass still half full. So, I love that, man. And with Martin Traylock, who you just recently added to your team, is a big addition from Hatchet Hall. And I think a lot of folks are really excited about what you two are going to accomplish there. And, you got Govind and I and Linda still in the wings when you need us. So as we're winding down here, but, as we emerge from 2020 and the political turmoil, the hostility that without making a political statement, but that, I just feel that was just so present. And when you mentioned not wanting to turn on the news, but it's like every time you turned on the TV, you were like, just wanting to make sure that, we still had a planet. Issues around social justice that are ongoing and continue to amplify, and necessarily so. And, you guys are in public spaces. You're dealing with the energy of the public coming at you, the employees, the staff that you have, the things you say, your demeanor, it's unavoidable for us. We don't get to do our job, behind closed doors and sealing off the rest of the world. So I'm curious, and John, I'll ask you first. What is the most significant takeaway for you from this past year?
I think I'd have to say it really took a hard look on how I balance a work day, and just creating this balance in life. It can't always all be work. It can't always be all giving and no taking. I think having that break of just normalcy that was just, it was a fast paced life, really allowed me to see how much important it was to spend time with my family outside of posting being. It's just not always working. I love what we do, and for sure am 100% workaholic and love what I do. But man, sometimes you need to eat breakfast with your family and spend time at the house and, take care, walk your dog a little bit. It's just, I think that pause really was the biggest takeaway of like, you want to live longer and have a healthy life. You got to balance this out more. I think we were working so hard to keep up with all of the progress that we've had with taking on the restaurant that I haven't looked down and checked the clock. I just go.
I've used that expression a lot, the pause button that kind of got pressed this year on the entire planet. Govind, what do you take away, man, from 2020? What are you looking forward and looking back? What's your frame of mind and from what we've just witnessed and continue to go through here?
It's interesting. It's definitely, shows you how fragile, things are, people are, life is, and how things can change at the snap of a finger. From a number of things, not just the pandemic, but, the protests and this and that, and like how things that, can get unveiled, overnight and really make some people think. Also, resiliency and knowing that we as people, we as restaurateurs, we as not just like white, black, this or that. It's like we can all get through this together if we're smart about it, if we're talking about it, if we're thinking things through. And families, it brought us a lot closer. Not that there was a lot of distance or disconnect, but John, as you said, it's like really just having that time to really spend and get to know each other a little better and love each other a little more and understand each other a little better has been really incredible. But and then just looking forward, it's like I know that it has made us stronger. I know, we can live, learn, and be productive and have balance and just do so much more when we're all sort of in it together.
Well said, man. I really appreciate the brotherhood that we've formed, the three of us and our extended loved ones. And, I just really appreciate you guys and thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. And not to end on a sad note, I want to pick it up a little bit. So Govind, describe for me before we split your perfect night at the Lobster. How does that look? What happens?
That would mean that I would be at home.
I said at the Lobster.
Exactly.
With you at home. Okay.
No, perfect night at the Lobster. It's a joy being there. It's definitely a lot of work. And, just with my new role, it's a lot more responsibility and definitely getting pulled in a number of different directions. But it's not just about me. I have put together a really good team. And the things that really drive me is just seeing that full dining room, seeing people enjoying themselves, having a good time, talking to as many people as I can. Similar to how I saw you, it's like I'm pulling out chairs, I'm clearing tables, I'm working with the guys and women in the kitchen and this and that. And it's just that energy. It's that buzz. It's that that smell, that look, that feel of, busy restaurant. Then obviously, yeah, sure, having the sunset, coming down over the ocean there, it sort of adds in even a little more. It doesn't feel like work, it really just feels like just good times and good vibes.
That's beautiful. And then you jump on that motorcycle, hit the 10 under a full moon, and off you go. I know it. John, tell me, Post and Beam, perfect night. What's that look like?
Oh man, the perfect night at Post and Beam means that Ronnie is there with me, and she's table touching. So I think it starts with booked out reservations. We got live music. So we got live jazz on the patio, Friday night, Sunday brunch. I think those are like our favorite times, and everything's just moving like a beautiful, beautiful symphony, man. Like the kitchen's pumping out food. Guests are happy. We're still seating people at the bar. The food counter's full. One of the coolest things we were doing before pre-pandemic, where we used to offer oyster shots to the guests that sat at the food counter. And like, you would hear live music coming out from the patio, everybody smiling, having a great time. The room noise level is pretty high because everything's open, and everybody dresses so nicely when they come to Post and Beam. It's an event some nights. So that's a perfect night for us, man.
And I think we all have to give props to Reggie. And I would say on that perfect night, Reggie's at the bar, not complaining about the pour. Shout out to Reggie.
That's right.
Well, thank you both. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you both taking the time to sit with us today, and looking forward to seeing you both real soon. So in live and in living color. But until then, take good care.
You too. Good talking.
Thanks a lot, Brad. Peace and blessings, fellas.
You too. That was a fantastic discussion, and love this part of the show where I welcome my dear friend, Ambassador Shabazz, who just looks lovely and radiant and full of life this morning. What's happening, Ambassador? How you living?
I'm still adjusting to that compliment. That radiant part. I'm living full, let me say, tall order, big plate, and loving every bit of it. I just have to learn how to take care of myself in the balance of things. But, as I shared with you, notwithstanding as busy as things are, this hour is always like something I look forward to. It's something that's, for me, it's more caressing for me than me being busy at the work, but just sort of digesting and receiving and listening to the brethrenship of the guests and the reflections I have fondly of some of those nuances that many of them, share. And, when you think of Post and Beam and what it means, not as a restaurant, but just foundationally, fundamentally, and so much of that in why you named it, what it brought forth, how it anchors for other people, not just in the industry, but those that are of us like patrons. And that it wasn't just food, even though the food is great, it was really the atmosphere, the anchoring. And so when we think about how we resume life right now, post 2020, experiences like Post and Beam or the corner table or our grandfather's table or reflectively, an aunt or an uncle's lap. That's what's happening now. That pause amidst the crises, unyielding crises, just also enables us to figure out the anchor, the emotional anchor, the compassionate anchor. And I just loved listening to Armstrong and Cleveland in reference to a shared experience, right? It's passing the torch. It's kind of like the significance of the circle of influence, which we underestimate sometimes. We think we have to be genealogically connected, and yet we're spiritually connected. You can meet people and have a great time, and then you wonder what sustains it. How does it turn into another business, another partnership? How does it withstand the highs and the lows? It's just the kinships that go beyond the typical format or formula. And it's just really great for me to hear about the restaurant's founding in an area that people warned us to stay away from. And I remember the conversation, wanting to anchor there. Success is everywhere. But what is that if the folks that are of you can't break bread with you? And so to dare to do so, and for me to even join that process in a different way, bringing people across the hill, over the hill, different sides of the zip codes, designing, come with me, join me for a brunch, and people having a ball, right? And people want to, right? They just don't, they need an invitation sometimes. They need to feel like they're not crashing a party, that even if it's culture specific in origin and cuisine, that too is also to be shared.
Well, I want to acknowledge that, because when we were launching brunch at Post and Beam, as you've always been close to me, and I always, run by you, whatever I'm thinking about doing, and get your wisdom. But, we were going to launch brunch, and I asked you what you thought, and you took me one better. You said, you know what, I'm going to co-host brunch there with you. And you started just picking up the phone or sending out emails. And next thing I knew, we had this amazing, just colorful, international brunch crowd show up that mingled and mixed with our local Sunday church folks and the hipsters from wherever they were coming from. And it was this wild, just integrated room of social cultures. But you were the maestro. You helped to really launch that for us.
Well, and some of them were people that had enjoyed your restaurants on different sides of town. But this was permission. People wanted to. They hadn't been invited to cross lines. In New York, there's no avenue you can't cross. But we don't realize in other cities, people will ask you, what's your zip code? And that means something. In some areas, it just means, how do I get closer to you? In other areas is, where else should we meet? You set a tone and were eager to make sure everyone was breaking bread together. So I was based in Louisville at the time. And so I flew in for whatever that weekend was. And some friends said, I can't come that weekend. Are you going to be there next weekend? So I came back, because I was trying to meet the yes, right? And not just send somebody, but say, join me at the table, right? And so from that point on, people would stop on the way to the airport, coming back from the airport before going to whichever direction. And it was such an elegant mix of down home.
Well, I tell you, today I really felt, kind of the essence of why this podcast is important to me. I felt like Misty, talking with those guys, because you relive you've gone through battle, and we lose family, and that family, you have memories of them in those rooms. And, it creates this photo album that, you continue to replay, especially when we were coming out of a year where we had, that live experience taken away, and we're talking to one another in these little squares and boxes. So, just really grateful for the experience of having to, of having been in business with folks like John and Govind, and for also the support that you offer. So thank you, Ambassador. It's lovely to see you. And I know you're off to a very special event. So we're not going to talk about that today, but we will talk about that soon, because I'm going to make you spill some beans. But as for today, wishing you well, and, have a lovely afternoon.
Same to you, my dear.
Thank you.
Corner Table Talk is hosted by Brad Johnson, produced by Brad and Linda Ailes Johnson, coordinating producer Lauren Turner, theme music Life Goes On by Bryce Vine, executive producers Omar Thompson, Andrew Kalb, and Ken Johnson. Find the Corner Table Talk podcast wherever you get your podcast. Follow, subscribe, rate, and leave a comment. Corner Table Talk is a Say It Loud Network production.